Hello YouTubers, this is Gold Standard 924 coming at you with another video. This is going to be the conclusion of my Halloween edition of TV's Forgotten Gems. Before I get started, this is going to be a little different from some of the past three installments that I've done. And most of those sci-fi shows were really geared towards the family entertainment sort of audience. So it's not going to be, aimed towards like children or anything that's geared towards the family for that matter. So there you have it. That and the show that I'm kind of be talking about is a short-lived TV adaptation of a famous Marvel anti-hero, and this actually took place after the Blade movie trilogy. And the show that I'm talking about is the 2006 version of Blade. So, um, so basically, the show originally premiered in the summer of 2006, where it was watched by about 2.5 million viewers, and it aired as this 2-hour special. So, um, so I mean, with this show, it really centers around a character by the name of Krista Starr, and she just came back from the military, and when she comes back to the United States, she came out from during the war of Iraq, and she finds out that her brother Zach was actually killed by a wealthy vampire, and by the name of Marcus Van Schaefer. So eventually, she meets up with Blade, and they have this sort of working relationship going on. And while she was spying for Marcus, eventually Krista gets turned into a vampire when Marcus injects her blood into hers. And now Krista starts to gain, starts to become this sort of immoral vampire, and just not really controlling her mental emotions. Um, and so Blade comes in to find out that that she became, that she was injected with his poison, and and then Blade injects with some serum that kind of allows Krista to really uh, become fully aware or self-aware of the transformations going in her body. So basically that was kind of how the two-parter goes. And yeah, and it's revealed that that Blade actually worked for brother Zach during while she was doing army duty, and so the show really, I think for its time, I mean, it was something that Spike TV kind of thought outside the box, and at the time, I think a lot of people just had very mixed feelings about how the TV show was gonna be portrayed as, as far as some of the characters, especially Blade, and whether or not it would live up to the hype of the famous Blade movie trilogy. So originally, like Showtime planned on creating the series, and it would have had Wesley Snipes reprising his role as Blade, but apparently New Line filed a lawsuit on Wesley Snipes, and it was believed it was due to a possible fact that Wesley Snipes just didn't get a full salary, and it kind of goes back to the Blade Trinity movie that they were doing, and so as a result, Wesley Snipes opted out, and basically Showtime just scrapped the whole idea altogether. The idea wasn't picked up until Spike TV greenlit the series, and they started casting a rapper by the name of Sticky Fingers, who a lot of people know him from the popular rap group named Onyx, and eventually he portrays the TV version of Blade. So I mean he did a pretty decent job as far as portraying Blade goes. I mean, I kind of understand where he was coming from, when it comes to you know replacing an actor that was known that really sparked the whole Blade character and made him a lot famous. So I mean, it's kind of hard to kind of live up to that hype and have someone else portray that role. Um, but I mean, he did a decent job. I mean, it's not too terrible, but but I think a lot of people kind of associate the Blade character more with Wesley Snipes. Um, but like I said, he's not necessarily terrible, but a person can tolerate it. But I guess the only problem was that he just didn't really have a whole lack of sense of humor compared to the Wesley Snipes version. Um, but that's just my opinion. Let's see. And you also have like some of the new characters, like I discussed with Krista. Um, so I mean, even though despite the fact that the title name was actually called Blade, it really centered. It just seemed like the backstory really they were really invested on the Krista character a lot more than the Blade character. And it did kind of mislead some of the viewers that were looking forward to just the typical Blade movie where they focus more on character of the same title name of the show. Um, so I mean, I guess it's sort of understandable in that sense. Um, and then they brought in a new character with Shen instead of bringing in Whistler from the movies. So I mean, so we don't really. So he's kind of like more the sidekick to Blade instead, and even though Whistler did appear in the flashback scenes in one of the episodes of the TV series, but it's I mean he was okay I guess, but you don't really know too much about him besides being Blade's sidekick. So I mean this show only lasted about 12 episodes. Um, so I mean, we didn't really get a chance to really explore a little more about him. And maybe they would have had in season two, but you know, but the show just ended up getting canceled after the first season. I think the thing with a lot of the TV versions, and with the TV versions of like big box office hits, is that the show, you know, can tends to be very low budget. It just you know you can't really expect too much as far as like Oscar winning acting goes. I mean, you can't really expect too much like that. Um, but it was overall pretty decent at best. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's something that I don't think probably you would expect much. And they had this sort of they kind of he kind of conducts this sort of project called the Aurora Project, and it becomes like this ongoing project that goes on throughout the first season, and basically while he was creating the serums, and there's like this whole warfare between his clan and the Pure Bloods, um, and eventually, while they were kind of making this sort of serum with the Aurora Project, it was supposed to be this sort of phase um, where pretty much the vampires would start to become immune to like garlic and sunlight, which are normally the weaknesses when it comes to vampires, um, in vampire mythology. So with that, it allows them to kind of tone down the weakness of the vampires and let them, just be like a bunch of daywalkers, kind of like what Blade was, just a part vampire, part human. Um, so that was kind of the idea behind the Aurora Project, and eventually during the finale, Marcus actually betrays the Purebloods, um, and basically the Purebloods get destroyed. And then the show ended in a cliffhanger when Marcus finds out that Krista was working for Blade the whole time. Um, so it kind of really just ended abruptly, and Spike actually weren't intending on canceling the series, but it was believed at first to be low ratings, but it was pretty expensive for Spike to kind of fund enough money to produce a second season for the company that was producing the 2006 Blade series. So it did have something to do with the cost cutting measure, and and despite the fact that there was so much fan demand for the series, it just wasn't enough for the Blade series to continue. So as a result, we never got a resolution with Krista and Marcus, and as far as Marcus's realization of the secret behind Krista actually spying on him the whole time. Um, so So like I said, the show ended in a cliffhanger, and it's really something that that was kind of unfortunate in that sort of sense. But the storyline just kind of started off pretty slow, but I think it kind of picks up around about the second half of the series. And we got to see maybe like one episode of Blade, and his a little bit of his origins, and how he met up with Whistler, and just pretty much the idea of how he grew up over the years, um, and trying to adapt to his vampire ability, and as well as an episode where Marcus, his origin story, and how he was transformed to he was a former human being that eventually became a vampire. So I mean there were some pretty good origin episodes that kind of kept me watching, but I mean if you're a big fan of the movies, I mean maybe the TV series isn't for you. Um, but I mean, it was a decent try. I mean, it's it was. I will give A for effort as far as Spike TV goes. I mean, they were pretty new when it comes to producing new TV series, and I guess they just didn't realize it was going to be a hit. Um, and I would really kind of wish that Spike would continue to kind of milk in on the show's success. Especially that Spike is pretty much a well-established network, unlike back around the first few years of Spike, just the early years, before they got big. Um, so I mean, it would have been interesting for if they went for a second season, but like I said, just with the how the expensive cost and whatnot, just led to the show's cancellation. So that's really my thoughts on the Blade TV series. Just you can feel free to agree or disagree, but this is just my personal thoughts. I mean, it doesn't reflect any of the viewers that are watching this video. So, but if you disagree and you think the show is awesome, I mean, that's great. I'm not gonna knock you off or anything, but personally for me, it was a decent series, it was a decent try, um, but it's just like one of those shows that just kind of came and went. So that's just my opinion. So don't take it offensively. So yeah, this is basically it for this video. Thank you all for watching. And until next time, this is Gold Standard Caesar 924 signing out.